Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm Bobbie Grenier, your trusted guide to navigating the world of real estate in Maine. Get ready to debunk mortgage myths, unravel real estate mysteries, and learn tips to avoid costly mistakes. Whether you're an industry pro, an overwhelmed buyer, confused seller, or simply curious about life in Maine, this is the podcast for you. Hey friends, welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm your host, Bobbie Grenier. And for those of you that have listened to the podcast before, welcome back. And for those of you that are new to the podcast, welcome. And I want to thank you for tuning in and checking us out, giving the podcast a listen. I hope it's something that you find valuable. And today I'm actually doing a solo podcast. And this podcast episode is inspired by my son, Jacob. Jacob is just starting his home buying journey, and he's a first-time home buyer, so it's really exciting. I'm super proud. He has just started a great job, and his girlfriend has just graduated from college, so they are in a perfect place to start this process. So I really wanted to talk to you all about the process when it comes to the title company, because Jacob is constantly saying, well, what's next, Mom? What's next? What's the next step? And I always say, well, of course it's, and I'll tell him whatever the next step is. And then I realized he doesn't know, as most people don't. And like in all of our professional careers, it's something we do every day. And I think that I know for myself anyway, I sometimes will lose sight or maybe not have the understanding that people don't know, and they need the information. They need to know what comes next. And as professionals, that is our job. That is our job to do that. So the first step, obviously, that I pointed Jacob to was getting a pre-approval. And I'm just going to say that, and maybe not everybody will agree, but I think that getting a pre-approval from your lender is the way to go. Don't even mess with a pre-qualification unless you are rock solid. But for somebody that's younger, establishing their credit and starting out in a new career, getting that pre-approval takes away any questions. And it was a bit of a lengthy process, but we got through it. He got his pre-approval, and so he's ready to shop for some houses. And I just want to add one more thing about that. I did a great episode with my friend Jillian Benson from Leader One, and that's episode 7, Mortgage 101. So go back and listen to that, because that actually, she gives a great explanation of the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. But just simply said, a pre-approval goes a step further. So it's basically doing the application process before you actually start looking at houses. So once we went through that pre-approval process, I needed to connect my son with a real estate agent. And this is always such a hard thing for me, because I work with so many amazing agents. And so when I do need to connect somebody personally or a family member, I have a hard time, because again, I know so many agents, but I only can pick one. So what I did was look to see who I thought Jacob would enjoy working with. So shout out to Mike Ellis from Realty of Maine, because he is the agent that Jake chose to work with, and he's doing a great job. Again, we're just starting out. They've only looked at a few houses, so but we're starting that beginning process. But getting back to why I wanted to do this episode, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of contract to closing. So I wanted to mention that pre-approval, that has to be the first thing, or pre-qualification if you decide to go that route. That has to be the first thing. That's what you come to your buyer's agent with. That tells you how much money you have to shop with, gives you what loan program you may be going through, whether you're going to be asking for any seller concessions. So you really need to do that step, and your agent, a buyer's agent, really, they'll start working with you, but they won't show you any homes in my experience, until you've done this pre-qual or pre-approval. So you have your pre-approval letter, pre-qualification letter. You have chosen a real estate agent that you like, trust, and want to work with. So you're ready to see some homes. And I just want to say it is tough out there for buyers right now. Inventory continues to be low and it's a seller's market, but homes are being listed every day. We're closing deals every day. So stick with it. And don't get discouraged, because if something falls through or doesn't work out, that wasn't the home for you. I have so many times in closings where buyers will tell me that they made an offer and they had a property that they thought really was a great property, and it fell through, and then something even better came along. So if it falls through, just go with it. That wasn't meant for you, and move on, because you'll find the right property, and that's kind of what we're going through right now. So you're going to look at houses and just enjoy it, and don't buy something that you don't want, or don't buy something because you're worried about the low inventory or how long it's going to take. And really just communicate with your buyer's agent as to what's important to you and what you want, and they'll steer you in the right direction. Don't waste your time looking for properties that you can't afford, that aren't in your area, that aren't properties that you are interested in. I know it's tempting to just, take a look, take a peek. Don't waste everybody's time doing that. Really look at the properties that you're going to consider. And that doesn't mean I'm not saying don't think outside the box. Definitely think outside the box. But just, narrow your search down, because you don't want to be wasting time looking at homes that you're really never going to make an offer on, because you could miss something that could be great while you're spending your time on another property. So you're out looking for properties and you finally find one. You make an offer, your offer gets accepted, and you're thrilled. So what happens next? That's the question I'm being asked right now from my son. What happens next once you get that house under contract? At this point, in most cases, your buyer's agent and your lender, that's the first part of your team. So you're building this team that's going to get you through the home buying process. And in most cases, your buyer's agent and your lender, they'll work together. So your agent will know what your program is. They'll possibly send properties to your lender that you're going to make an offer on, so that they can run some numbers for you. It's so important to get that team that's going to communicate and work for you, because again, you don't know how it works. So you need to have the professionals that do. So once you're under contract, what happens next? You need to choose a title company. And that's, what I do. So I can kind of pick it up from here. At this point, your lender is going to send an order for title examination and closing to the title company. And that's going to include all of the details of your financing, and also a copy of the purchase and sale agreement. And that purchase and sale agreement gives us the terms that the seller agreed to sell the property to you, and the terms that you as buyers agreed to purchase the property. So that information is very important to us. It needs to be complete and accurate. So again, important that you're choosing a top-notch team of a lender and a real estate agent. And once the title company gets that order, we can set up an order, and we're going to start a title search. So the title search is our abstractors or title attorneys going to the public records, and the public records are the registry of deeds. So there will be a deed reference on the contract, and that will describe the property. And we just search back. We make sure that the title is free and clear of any encumbrances, and by encumbrances I mean mortgages, tax liens. Maybe somebody else has some type of right to the property, maybe a right of first refusal to purchase the property that needs to be cleared. We look back and make sure that you can get good, as buyers, get good and marketable title. So that takes a little bit of time, depending on what the title looks like, how far back that we have to search. But it's really an important process, because in order for you to get your loan, we need to be able to provide your lender and yourselves as buyers a title insurance commitment. And that is your title company's commitment to the lender and to the buyer to issue you a title insurance policy. And I just want to make a side note here that buyers are not required to purchase title insurance. Lenders do require title insurance be purchased, and the buyer does pay for it, but it is a title insurance policy that the lender will require that they have. So it falls in the category of your closing costs. And so when we're doing that title exam, as I said earlier, some things can come up. I mean, there might be some unpaid liens for taxes, or maybe somebody had a medical bill that went unpaid, so the hospital had to put a lien on the property to try to get that bill paid. Lots of things can happen. Sometimes there are maybe heirs from years ago or owners ago that have some type of right to the property, maybe an outstanding mortgage, maybe the sellers granted some kind of easement over the property that needs to be taken care of. So there are lots of things that we need to check, and lots of things can come up on title, and most of them can be resolved with a matter of a payoff or getting some interest cleared off by a release deed. That's something that your title company will work to do. And it is, included in your title search and closing fees, which again are closing costs that the buyer will pay for. But this takes a little bit of time. But the good news is, while the title process is being done, the lender on their end are doing their underwriting process. So it's happening, sort of simultaneously. So hopefully it will all come together. But that title search is so important because it's a seller's responsibility to provide you with good and marketable title. And that means a title that's free from any defects or liens or encumbrances, and will make it easy for you to transfer the property, make the property insurable for title insurance. And what that means is, when you go to sell the property, if you go to sell the property, you don't want any surprises as to the marketability and if the title is clear. And if something does come up on title and you've purchased an owner's title insurance policy, you have coverage there. So just a side note, I do recommend buying an owner's title insurance policy, and the title company that you're working with can answer any questions that you have about title insurance. So I always encourage buyers to ask any questions regarding title insurance of their title attorney or their title company. So once title is done and everything is good to go, our processors at the title company will get tax information. If the seller has a mortgage on the property, they'll get payoff information. So they're working on the file as well. And then we're waiting for what we call a clear to close from the lender. That means that the lender's underwriting is done. They've gotten their appraisal back. Obviously, the property needs to be appraised to make sure the value is there to support the loan, because the property is what's securing that loan. So they want to make sure that the value is there to secure the loan. And waiting for that clear to close, sometimes it happens quickly, sometimes it doesn't happen quite so quickly. And honestly, a lot of times it depends on the time of year. In Maine, the real estate business is much busier from April to October, November, and everybody is swamped and staff is a little bit overburdened. But for the most part, contracts, as long as everything goes clearly, that contract date is met. And I just do want to take a step back and let you know that your contract date is important. So that goes back to putting your purchase and sale together, but be realistic. I mean, the seller will be realistic about when they can get out of the property and when you can take possession of that. But usually your lender will let you know, and again, work with the buyer's agent to let you know what is realistic for the lender to meet that goal and give that clear to close in time for your closing date. But the title company cannot do anything until that lender gets the clear to close, and they have to go through their underwriting process and get that appraisal as well. The title company or closing company will also prepare documents. So sometimes the documents come from the lender, and then there are other documents that our office will provide or the title company will provide that are required by the state of Maine and also our title insurance underwriters. So that happens again simultaneously with that title search, with the underwriters' requirements, and it's for the buyers, it's a little bit of hurry up and wait situation. But usually, again, there aren't surprises. You have dates on your contract. Your lender knows, they've been provided that contract, so they know what you're looking at for a target closing date. So hopefully all will go smoothly at this point. Once you've received the clear to close on your loan from the lender, the title company will schedule that closing. So I know that a lot of states do it differently, but in Maine, we tend to sit down at a table, buyers, sellers, agents, loan officer, if they can attend, and sign documents all together. And there are times actually that this is the first time that the buyer and seller actually meet. So that's always kind of interesting, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a not so good way. But and there are also sometimes that the parties need to sign separately due to scheduling issues or that type of thing where they are. Sometimes sellers, will sign by a remote notary or, a mail away closing, that type of thing. But typically everybody sits around a closing table, and you're going to be asked to sign many, many documents. But it's an exciting day. I just want to give you a few tips for your closing. Make sure before the closing that you have a valid picture government issued ID. This can be a driver's license. This can be a passport, a military ID. This can, it has to be a picture ID. And it has to not be expired, and it has to have your current name. So ladies, if you've gotten married or divorced or have changed your name in any way, or gentlemen, then you need to have your name on the ID, because for two reasons. We have to do a Patriot Act form for the lender, and then we also have to have that ID as notaries of the state of Maine. We have to see some ID so that we can notarize your documents, your closing documents. But the other thing I want to mention before closing is usually, not always, but usually you have to bring funds to closing. And those funds cannot be a personal check, and they cannot be cash. It has to be certified funds, so a bank certified check or a wire transfer. And so many times when you have somebody that's coming from out of state that maybe has a bank, a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America, or a bank where maybe the closest branch is in Boston or New Hampshire or whatever. So they are here in Maine, their bank is out of state, and they can't get their funds because they can't initiate that wire transfer by a phone call or online. So please check with your banking institution to see how that works if you plan to wire your funds. And I always have to give a heads up to buyers to make sure you verify any wiring instructions that are provided by a closing attorney or a title company. Wire fraud is blowing up. It has gone crazy. I don't care if you have to call 1, 2, 6 times. Verify those instructions. And if for any reason you get changed or updated instructions, do not trust them. It is very rare that a title company or a closing attorney will change their wiring instructions. So make sure that you verify those instructions. That is so important. And again, give yourself plenty of time. Make sure you find out if a wire transfer can be initiated online or by phone if your bank is not local. But do all of that ahead of time. And again, check that ID. So many times people come to closing and they really had no idea that their ID had expired, and we simply cannot do the closing without a valid ID. So it sounds like something small, but it certainly can turn into something big. So at the closing table, what you can expect is just lots of signing and explanation, and it's overwhelming. I always I always feel bad, and I really try to give a complete closing to my buyers, make sure they understand what they're signing. But ask questions. If you have any questions, ask questions. Don't worry if people are sitting there. Don't worry if you feel like you're inconveniencing people. Ask those questions at the closing table. And you're going to sign your documents, and hopefully the seller is going to be signing their documents there as well, and they will walk away from the closing with a check, and you'll walk away from the closing with keys. I do want to just take one step back that, again, I'm not a real estate agent, but I think it bears mentioning that do a walkthrough. Make sure you go to close before you're closing, you do a walkthrough of the property. And what that is, making sure everything is as you expect. So make sure that all of the seller's belongings are gone. The standard is that it should be, broom swept. There shouldn't be garbage there. Everything should be in working order. The water, the heat. Go to the basement in the winter. Make sure no pipes are frozen. That all needs to be done prior to closing. And I will be honest that there are times that, and it's not usually any fault of the seller, something unexpected happened, that maybe something needs to happen at closing in the way of maybe an escrow holdback for repairs or something along those lines. But do not skip the step of a walkthrough of your property. This is a huge investment in many cases in a lot of people's lifetime. Your biggest investment. Take the time to go to the property, take the time to do the walkthrough. Even if you're running late for your closing, just let the closing company know. But it's super important, and I would never, ever recommend that anybody skip a walkthrough. Okay, so getting back to the closing. Your closing has ended. You have your keys, and congratulations, you are a new homeowner. But what can you expect after that from the closing company or the title company? You are going to get some documents. At this stage of the game, we do so many closings on the road, which is really kind of how this started. We'll send you your documents securely, your signed documents. We usually give you a deed and a settlement statement at closing. But you'll get those documents after closing. You'll also get a copy of the recorded deed. And it's funny because people want that old-fashioned deed with the blue-backed paper, but we electronically record our deeds, so you'll just get a PDF file with the deed, and you will get your title insurance policy. And a lot of times you're cautioned at closing to make sure you don't lose it, or make sure you don't lose the deed. The title company keeps all of those things on record. Your deed is recorded at the Registry of Deeds, so it shows that you are the new record owner of the property. So yeah, definitely hold on to those important papers, but don't freak out if you do lose them or if something happens, because your title company will have those documents as well. So I hope this little run through is helpful. And I just want to give you a few more tips for a smooth closing. And the first one is, you're going to be asked for information. Most of the time, your lender and your real estate agent will provide all of the information that we need, but sometimes the title company might ask for some additional information. Respond promptly. Make sure that you answer any requests quickly and completely, because it can actually delay closings. Make sure you review documents, even things that you get prior to, and ask questions. There's no dumb question. You haven't done this before. You don't know. So definitely reach out and ask some questions. And if something is wrong or incorrect, a typo, whatever, make sure that everybody knows about it. Reach out. Again, if you have any questions or you think that will be handled later, just check, because we're all busy. We're human. We can make mistakes. So if we all keep each other on task, then it definitely will make the process much, much smoother. And plan ahead for your closing day. So make sure that you check out what needs to happen with getting utilities set up, power, water, sewer, if you have public water or sewer in the property that you're buying. Your lender will require that you have homeowners insurance in place prior to closing. But that's something that you need to think about, and you don't want to wait till the last minute. And like I said, arrange for those closing funds in advance. You're going to need a bank certified check or a wire transfer. And I just want to give you a few tips on managing stress and confusion during this process, because it's a lot. It really is a lot, and you just have to take it step at a time. But the more organized you are, the more you keep track of deadlines and documents, definitely helps the process out. And communicate openly with your team and ask questions, like I said, if you're unsure. I actually have an episode, I think it's episode 4, called Building Your Dream Team. And that really gets more into the importance of picking a lender that you like and trust and want to work with. And more importantly, a real estate agent that you like and trust, because that really is so important. You need to have somebody that is on their game for a real estate agent, and that has your best interests at heart and is looking out for you. And then, just practice self-care. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. It's a lot. Do you need to set up a moving company? Get that taken care of. Start packing those non-essential things. Who cares if you eat on paper plates for a week? Get that done. Get it done ahead of time if possible. But more importantly, focus on the excitement of your new home rather than the stress of the process. It's really exciting. You can start thinking about decorating. I do want to give you a tip. Don't go out and spend a lot of money prior to in the way of any financed furniture or open any credit cards at TJ Maxx. Don't do it. It can throw a complete monkey wrench into your credit picture, your financial picture, and can cause lots of problems with your financing. So, maybe shop in your head or pick out paint colors or that sort of thing, but just be careful about what you do in the way of making sure that you're doing what your lender says. And your lender will tell you to make sure you don't take out any lines of credit, don't have your credit pulled, don't quit your job. That's all common sense stuff, but just really focus on the excitement. I mean, it's such an amazing, amazing thing to be buying a new home. And I know for my son, he's over it with paying rent. Rents are crazy everywhere, not just in Maine, but he really wants to put that money into something that's going to be his own. And I'm really excited for him, and we might update you as we get through the process. We're actually going to go look at a house later on today, and he asked me to come, so I'm excited to do that with him and share this with him. And hopefully sharing all of this with you, it has been helpful. So let me know. I mean, did you find this helpful? Do you find this informational? I really like to put this information out there, and I do talk with professionals a lot and kind of go that way. But I also, with this podcast, want to be able to help out buyers and sellers and other people that are interested in the real estate process. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and maybe go back and listen to this again. Definitely check out those episodes that I referenced. That was episode 7 with Jillian Benson of Leader One, talking about that difference between that pre-qualification process and the pre-approval letter. And then again, that team that you pick for your real estate agent, your lender, your title company, that's all so important. So maybe go back and give a listen to episode 4 about building your real estate dream team. This has been the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast with Bobbie Grenier. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and will share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast so you don't miss new episodes. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes and not intended as legal advice or representation by myself or any of the guests on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it real.